Hello and welcome to the millionth video on the internet about no contact. The difference between this and all the other ones is I'm going to give a personal story and I'm going to tell you about all the misconceptions of no contact so we can get into this topic. I think it is very important for this series about highly sensitive people or people experiencing vulnerability or people experiencing being highly sensitive at the moment regarding no contact or being in a relationship. The first thing that we need to understand is you have a definition of no contact. Then there is a book definition of no contact. And then there's going to be the definition of no contact you make for yourself at the end of this video. So whatever the definition is that you have of no contact is what you have right now. I don't know what it is, but it is whatever you have in your mind. You can put together what it may mean, regardless of what you've read about it or heard about it. By the book, what no contact means is it refers to completely cutting off all communication with someone, typically an ex-partner after a breakup, meaning no phone calls, texts, social media interactions, or in-person meetings, essentially giving both parties space to heal and process emotions about the interference of ongoing contact. And there are a lot of things to take away from that. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the idea of how you externally process or what you think like no contact is externally. A lot of people get it twisted. This is like the first misconception. I go no contact, so they have no access to me and they can't talk to me and they have to, some AlphaNet type of definition of they get to miss me, as opposed to, you actually creating a healthy relationship where you both communicate and, whatever that, how that would apply to that definition. But a lot of people think that no contact is simply kind of almost, starving out the other person of your presence and your attention. And then they come running back and saying, oh my goodness, I want to talk to you. I go back to what I've seen and heard from a lot of therapists that I've spoken to is that do you want somebody to be with you solely because of an edited version that you're putting out? Do you want to be with somebody by circumstance? They're only attracted to you because they've been starved out of attention or your presence. Do you want to be with somebody sheerly by some manipulative scenario that you've put out there? No, I mean, that's not sustainable. You can't keep that going. You technically could, but then at that point it's just a lifetime of manipulation, which doesn't leave for any authenticity or joy or true happiness. All that being said, the external, whatever happens on the other end of no contact, that's what happens. No contact, when you look at it at its core, talked to my therapist about this a few times, is that when people talk about, removing themselves from a scenario, removing themselves from a substance, removing themselves from a geographical location, they literally remove themselves. They go somewhere else. It's not to starve out the substance, geographical location, or scenario of themselves, like, oh, you don't have me anymore. It's to find out who they are without that in their life. And when you start to understand no contact, you kind of can really break it down to, it's finding out who you are at your core without all these other things around you. And when you start to figure that out, a lot of Olympians talk about this. When they retire or they're done, they're like, oh my gosh, who am I? I'm not waking up at 5 or 4:30 in the morning for practice or whatever it may be. I'm not doing 2-a-days. I'm not on this strict regimen. Who am I? And in a sense, they're going no contact with their competitive sport, but they're out of that field. They have to find out who they are outside of it. And it's important for you to understand who you are outside of it and before you even go into the next situation. Because what a lot of people will do is if they don't do the work before going into a relationship or going into another scenario, then you're not going to be able to know who you truly are in that situation anyways. And it's extremely important for people to find out who they are and what they want to become, on their journey, regardless of the scenario, regardless of whether that person's with you or not, or you're with that person or whatever it may be. And it's important to really get to the bedrock of that. No contact is for you. It's for you. And I don't want you to get this twisted with stonewalling. A lot of people will weaponize no contact and be like, aha, I'm gone. And it's like, like ninja vanish, and like they disappear and they're like, now you'll see what it's like without me. And that at its core, yes, it's manipulative, but it only hurts you. You see, you're not applying any means of growth or, building in that situation at all. It's simply now you've set a device and you just sit there and wait. It's not going to grow or build anything. No contact, if it's utilized in a healthy way, it's so you can heal. When you get injured in any sport, you got to sit out. You don't jump back on the field. You go no contact with the sport. You broke your leg. You need to get off the field or you're going to get hurt more. And you put everybody else in jeopardy too. And to just kind of like tell everybody you're okay is just gaslighting yourself to think that you can still be out here doing this thing when really you got to heal. You really got to heal. And healing happens when you allow it to happen. It's like David Bayer says with manifesting, it's desire plus non-resistance equals desired outcome. You have to apply non-resistance to it. You have to allow it to happen. And a lot of people, when they go no contact, they're applying more resistance. They're applying more force to whatever the scenario may be. I don't want people to get this all twisted that this is solely a romantic thing, because this can happen once you understand it can happen in a lot of other different arenas, industries, and realms, then you can really look at it for what it is. And I can't emphasize enough that stonewalling is when you are suffocating and depriving somebody of useful tools to growing a relationship or mending or healing something, an argument you may have had. No contact is when it is a healthy boundary. You may say it, you may not be in a place to say it, but it's if your aunt were to text you today and say, hey, what do you think of this weather? You wouldn't think twice and you'd be like, oh, However, if your ex-significant other texts you, what do you think of this weather? You may, calculate, well, if I don't say anything, they might be mad at me and there might not be a chance to get back together with them. But if I do say something and then they don't get back to me, then that means that they never want to get with me. Now I have the point of most interest and I don't have the upper hand anymore. Oh man. And, if I do say something back, then what would I even say? And so because you view it as seismic, you have to remove yourself because to heal, I'm not going to tell you have to do anything, but to heal, you would have to then remove yourself from that exchange until you can enter back into that room and that space with that person and be not fully objective, because that ain't going to happen, but at least be leaning a little bit out of this being a seismic thing, and you have a little more grounding underneath you, a little more gravity on you. And you're like, okay, I can rock with this a little more and not be entirely my world flipped upside down. Don't get it twisted that pain is inevitable. You're gonna hurt. Suffering is a little more up to you. How long do you want to suffer? How long will you give yourself to grieve? How long will you give yourself to mourn? That's up to you. The pain is gonna be there. You responding to the text or not, or whatever it may be, you're gonna feel pain one way or another. It's gonna suck. And then the question is, how do you continue that journey of healing? How do you continue it? I'm gonna wrap this up with basically a short story. And I do want to go back to one thing in here. Essentially giving both parties space to heal and process emotions without the interference of ongoing contact. So the other thing that we need to get to is process. If you pull out, if you start cooking something and you pull it out midway through before it's done, it's not, one, it could poison somebody and kill them, but two, it's not going to taste good, and it's not going to get to the point that you need it to be for it to be, fully cooked. When you don't process your emotions, when you re-enter into an argument or a conversation before you've processed how you feel and where you're at with things, you're not, for me, my experience, it's almost worse at that point than it was in the beginning. It flips that thing way back. It throws it way to the back. And at that point, now you're forced to deal with the initial issue, and now you're forced to deal with the all the S that's come up just because you re-entered it too early. And when people haven't processed their emotions, sometimes people may settle. Like you'll see relationships get back together, or you'll see families get back to the dinner table, and everybody's like, like white knuckling the forks, like when is the next one gonna drop? Now you're in a state of emotional warfare, emotional cold warfare. You are, everybody is ready at the jump. We gotta go. And that is also, it's an awful place to be. It's an awful place to be because there can be no growth. There can be really no building because now everybody's waiting for the next person to tear the next person down. You are in war at that point. So understand processing the emotions is extremely important when going no contact. No contact is for you. And sometimes you may need to communicate it and say, hey, I need a beat. I'll get back to you when I feel okay. I can't have this with you right now. Which I've done with several people. I've done with many people, actually. And so I used to have it twisted, and I thought no contact was stonewalling. And I was really like, oh, yeah, I just turn away and just don't give them any of my attention. That's cool. But the thing was, when you build that wall, it goes both ways. And then you are the one that has to tend to the wall, not the other person. You have to tear it down to talk to the person. No contact is just putting a healthy boundary on it. Just saying, look, this is not feeding or giving, serving either of us. So I'm gonna take a beat, and I need to heal up before I can talk to you again. An example I had with this was I was in high school, had a breakup, and I was just beside myself. I never thought that a breakup could affect, that was my first breakup. So I didn't think that it could affect my entire being the way that it did. And my swim coach at the time, I was, in the swim season, it was in February, and I had trained my butt off. I was just like, day in, day out, 2-a-days, I was getting after it. And then at the end, I don't know what happened. I just totally fell apart. Totally fell apart. This relationship fell out. I couldn't swim at the speed that I wanted to. And I thought that I was going fast, but I wasn't. I really wasn't. I'd step out of the pool and be like, what the heck is going on? My body was in this total betrayal, or it felt like a total betrayal of all the work that we'd done. And I would talk to my swim coach, and I just couldn't figure out what happened. And my body was shot emotionally. It was what it was. And I'd have to go to my locker every day, and it was near my ex's locker. And I was just like, this is killing me. And even getting close to the people that, we shared the same friend group, and I just was forced to put on this smile and be like, and it wasn't, you have to understand contextually at this point, I didn't know who I was. I didn't even know how to navigate this at all. And so my swim coach was like, I think you should go talk to the counselor. And so I talked to the counselor, and we chop it up, and I think we kind of came up with this game plan, or I just went ahead and pulled the trigger on it. And she was basically like, broke down all these things, what are you feeling? Why are you feeling it? Where do you think that's coming from? And I said, dude, I think I just need a break, dude. I need to leave school or something. She's like, well, you can't do that. Sophomore in high school being like, hey man, I think I need to take a J term. Need to get up out of here. Study abroad. So I moved my locker. The school was huge. So I moved my locker. I was a sophomore. I moved my locker to the deepest corner. It was the freshmen and juniors. They were all in this weird section, on the first floor, not the second floor. So I wasn't even in the mix. I was just down in this other foreign place. I'm seeing faces I'd never seen before. This school was 2,000 plus people. I didn't know what was going on. And I entirely moved my whole space, my whole life, it felt like. I think I even reassigned some classes because I didn't want to be, in that area. And I had to go no contact. I had to go no nothing. I had to heal. And I didn't know what it was at the time. It didn't feel like stonewalling. It wasn't stonewalling at the time, but it just was, I had to get out of there. It it wasn't conducive for me to even be near the situation and have to see this person all the time. And I was just like, I would just simply like go wherever I could go, where I didn't have to see this person. And it worked. It totally worked. And like I remember I was like, I feel good. I can move my locker back up to the original space. And then I was like, no, but I like it down here. So I wrote it out. I wrote it out until the end of the year. And the thing that I took away from it, and I think you can take away from this as well, is that when you're in that vortex of non-healing, you're in the vortex of, the ruminating, the suffering, the grief, it affects you physically. It can affect you financially. It can affect you health-wise, big time. And it can affect you creatively. Everything stunts. And you have to come to terms with living life on life's terms. And that's part of it. Like I wasn't gonna sit at that locker and defy, my emotional existence and be like, yes, I can be just fine. No, I can't express to you how much swimming I had done. And I was not even able to muster like getting to finals in JV. Like for me, like I guess that doesn't contextually that may not make sense. I was so far off the mark that even my coaches were like, well, we don't know what's going on. It's totally psychological, 100% psychological. And that's the only sense I could make of it at the time. And after that, then, things is all elevated in swimming and whatnot. And, track went great. But that's just the idea of how it can affect you physically as well. So no contact is for you to heal. It's your winter arc, if I may. It is your hot, cold sauna ice plunge, if I may. It's your gym. It's the place where you get away and you block it all out and you just like, you really do some healing and do some processing and just work on you. So that is an elongated idea of no contact. And the misconceptions I really want you to watch out for are stonewalling, weaponizing no contact, and then also really getting caught up in the external byproduct of it. Like, ooh, I'm gonna see how they feel without me now. It's like, no. And if you're in that space, then you're gaming it. This is now a zero-sum game. And you gotta break the zero-sum game before you even start healing. So that's all I got for you in this one. We'll see you in the next video.